Most people assume a fan cools the air in a room. It does not. What a fan actually does is move air across your skin, which speeds up the evaporation of moisture and makes you feel cooler. That is a real effect, and it matters. But the moment you stop moving, the room air itself is still the same temperature it was. I want you to hold on to that distinction, because everything in this video builds on it. Once you understand what a fan can and cannot do on its own, you can make it do something it was never designed to do, and you can do it with 2 frozen water bottles and nothing else. I have watched folks run fans pointed at the ceiling, fans pointed at their faces, box fans in every window, and still wonder why the bedroom still feels like the inside of a bread oven at 2 in the morning. I have also watched the exact same fans, with a simple modification anyone can do in 5 minutes, drop the felt temperature in a room noticeably, enough to sleep through the night, enough to keep a kitchen bearable during a summer afternoon, enough to give an elderly parent or a small grandchild a genuinely comfortable afternoon without touching the thermostat. The technique is not new, it is not a gadget, and it costs nothing if you have a freezer and a plastic bottle. Before we go further, if you want a deeper breakdown of home cooling methods that go beyond what I can cover in a single video, the guide is available right now on the left side of your screen. Open your phone's camera app and point it at the QR code on the left, and it takes you straight there. That same QR code is going to stay pinned in the top right corner for the rest of the video, so you can grab it whenever you are ready and keep watching for now. Here is the myth I want to kill right up front, because it wastes a lot of people's money every summer. The big box stores are full of what they call evaporative coolers, plastic units that run water over a pad and blow the resulting cool, humid air into the room. In dry climates, those work reasonably well. But most of the United States east of the Rockies, and most of Western Europe in summer, is already humid enough that an evaporative cooler does almost nothing useful. It adds moisture to air that is already heavy with moisture, and you end up feeling hotter and stickier than you started. I have talked to folks who spent $200 or $300 on one of those units, ran it for a week, and quietly put it back in the box. So right away, we are not talking about anything like that. The second myth. People hear DIY air conditioner and assume it involves ice in a cooler with tubes running through it, like some kind of backyard engineering project. Those builds do work to some degree, but they require a cooler, a small pump or a fan mounted on a lid, and ice, real ice that melts fast and has to be replenished constantly. For an afternoon emergency, that is fine. For regular summer use, you are buying bags of ice every day or two, and the cost adds up faster than just running your AC. What I am showing you today requires no cooler, no pump, no tubing, and no bags of ice from the store. Just your own freezer and 2 ordinary plastic bottles. Here is the core principle. Cold surfaces cause the air immediately around them to drop in temperature. That cooled air is denser and sinks, but if a fan is positioned correctly, it pulls that cold air film off the surface of the frozen bottle and pushes it out into the room before it has a chance to sink and stay put. You are essentially harvesting a little envelope of cold air that forms around the ice and distributing it. It is a small effect. This is not a replacement for central air on a day that is 100 degrees, but it is a real effect. And in a bedroom, a home office, or a small sitting room, it is enough to matter. Now let me walk you through the exact setup, because placement is everything here. Start with your bottles. A standard 16-ounce plastic water bottle works fine. So does a 2-liter soda bottle. Bigger is not always better here. We will get to why in a moment. Fill each bottle about 3/4 full with water. Leave the cap loose while it freezes so you do not crack the bottle, and then tighten the cap once it is solid. Freeze them overnight. They take around 6 to 8 hours to freeze solid, depending on your freezer, so a little planning goes a long way. I keep 2 pairs of bottles rotating, 2 in the freezer, 2 in use, so I always have a ready set without waiting. For the fan, a standard box fan works best for this. Oscillating fans on a stand work too, but a box fan gives you more surface area to draw air across the bottles. A small desk fan can work in a pinch for a very confined space, but it does not pull enough airflow to make the effect meaningful in a room. Place the two frozen bottles side by side directly in front of the fan, on the intake side, meaning the side where the fan pulls air in, not the side where it blows out. Most box fans pull air in from the back and push it out the front. Set the bottles on a small tray or a folded towel to catch the condensation, which will drip as the bottles warm. Position them roughly in the center of the fan's intake face, leaving a few inches of clearance on each side so the fan can still pull airflow around and between the bottles. You want the fan drawing air past the cold surface of the bottles, not blocked by them. Turn the fan on low or medium speed. High speed actually reduces the effect slightly. The air moves past the bottles so quickly it does not have enough contact time with the cold surface to pick up the chill. This surprised me the first time I tested it. Slower, sustained airflow picks up more cold than a fast blast that barely grazes the bottle. And speaking of things that go deeper than I can cover here, if you want a fuller breakdown of how to think about home airflow, which directions matter in which rooms and why, open your phone's camera app and scan the QR code still in the top right corner. The guide goes further into the detail than this video has time for, and it is the kind of thing that changes how you think about your whole house, not just one room. Now, the biggest variable in how well this works is room size. In a standard bedroom, something around 10 by 12 feet with the door closed, two frozen 2-liter bottles running in front of a box fan will noticeably cool the air over the course of 15 to 20 minutes. I know that sounds modest, but at midnight when the room is stuffy and you cannot sleep, that difference is exactly what you need. In a large, open living room, the effect thins out quickly because there is too much warm air volume for two bottles to compete with. For large spaces, you either need more bottles or you need to combine this with other strategies, which I will get to. One thing that makes a bigger difference than most folks expect is pre-cooling the room. If you run the fan with frozen bottles in a room that is already relatively cool, early morning or after the sun has moved off that side of the house, the effect compounds. You are not fighting the heat so much as maintaining a head start. In my experience, the single biggest cooling mistake people make is waiting until a room is already at its hottest to try to cool it down. Cooling is much easier than recooling. If you get ahead of the heat in the morning and keep the room from building up thermal load through the afternoon, 2 frozen bottles and a fan can hold that room at a comfortable temperature for hours. This connects directly to window management, which is where most people leave a lot of cooling on the table. During the night, when outdoor temperatures drop, and in most temperate climates they drop meaningfully even on hot days, open your windows and run a fan to pull that cool night air in. Then, in the morning before the outdoor temperature climbs, close everything: windows, blinds, curtains. Heavy curtains on south and west-facing windows are worth more than people realize. A lot of the heat in a room on a summer afternoon is not coming through the air. It is radiant heat from sunlight coming through glass. Block the glass, and you slow the heat gain dramatically. Your frozen bottle setup then has far less work to do. Let me also address the question of bottle size, because I have tried a few combinations, and it matters more than you might expect. 2-liter bottles hold their cold longer, sometimes 4 to 6 hours before they are fully thawed, which is better for overnight use when you do not want to get up and swap them. The 16-ounce bottles thaw faster, sometimes in under 2 hours, but because they are smaller, you can position them more precisely and fit more of them across the intake face of the fan. For a desk fan in a home office, 2 small bottles side by side work nicely. For a box fan in a bedroom, I find 2 2-liter bottles the most practical choice for a full night's use. Some folks add a small amount of salt to the water before freezing. Salt water freezes at a lower temperature than plain water, so if your freezer is cold enough to freeze it, which most household freezers are, you get a colder starting temperature. The effect is real, but modest. I would not call it a game changer, but if you are already doing this setup regularly and you want to squeeze a little more out of it, it is worth knowing. If you want to go deeper on this than I can here, including how these principles connect to other low-cost cooling strategies, that is exactly what the guide is for. Open your camera app, Point it at the QR code still in the top right corner, and you are there. It goes well beyond what a single video has room for. Now let me talk about a few situations where this method fits especially well, because the right tool matters. For folks who are dealing with a power bill that has gotten genuinely uncomfortable in retirement, this setup is a meaningful weapon. Running a box fan costs a fraction of what running even a window AC unit costs per hour. If you can cover your bedroom overnight with frozen bottles and a fan instead of running the AC all night, the savings over a summer add up to a real number. I am not going to give you a specific figure because utility rates vary so widely, but if you run your AC unit through the night for 3 months, you know what your summer bill looks like. Cutting even half of those overnight AC hours makes a measurable dent. For anyone who does not have central air or a window unit, and there are many folks in older homes, apartments, and rural houses in both the United States and Europe who do not, this is not a stopgap. It is genuinely your best zero-cost option, short of moving to a cooler room. Combined with the window management I described earlier, a ceiling fan set to run counterclockwise in summer to push air straight down, and the frozen bottle setup running overnight, you can manage most summer nights in a climate where temperatures drop after dark. For folks who have AC but are dealing with one room that the system does not reach well, a bonus room, a converted attic space, a sunroom, this fills that gap without requiring you to run a portable unit all day. A few common mistakes I see people make with this setup. First, putting the bottles on the blow side of the fan, in front of where the air comes out. That does almost nothing. The air has already left the fan blades and has too much velocity to pick up much cold from a bottle it is blowing past. The bottles belong on the intake side, where the fan is drawing air in, and that air moves slowly past the cold surface before it gets accelerated through the blades. Second, not catching the condensation. Frozen bottles sweat. That is not a small amount of water. A 2-liter bottle can leave a significant puddle over a few hours. A folded towel or a shallow tray under the bottles is not optional. It protects your floor, your fan, and your peace of mind. Third, and this is the one that quietly undoes all the rest, forgetting to freeze replacement bottles in advance. The worst time to discover you have no frozen bottles is at 11 at night, when you are already miserable. I keep a dedicated pair of bottles in my freezer through the whole summer, rotating them in and out so there is always a cold set ready. It takes about 30 seconds to swap them. Make it a habit and you will never be caught without. Before I wrap up, if everything we covered today gave you ideas you want to hang on to and build on, the guide pulls the broader picture together in one place. Open your phone's camera app and scan the QR code still in the top right corner to get it. It is the kind of resource that goes well past what any single video can cover, and it is there whenever you are ready. Here is the plain summary of what we covered today. A fan on its own does not cool air, but a fan positioned to pull air past a frozen surface does. 2 frozen water bottles on the intake side of a box fan, set to low or medium speed, in a closed room that has been pre-cooled by smart window management, will create a genuinely useful cooling effect that costs nothing to run and nothing to set up. It works best in smaller rooms, overnight, and when you combine it with keeping heat out rather than fighting it once it is already in. There is no manufacturer with a margin to protect in any of this. No one makes money when you freeze 2 water bottles and position them in front of a fan you already own. That is exactly why this is the kind of thing that gets passed over in favor of products with a price tag. It works, it is time-tested, and it is yours to use tonight. This week, freeze 2 bottles tonight and try the setup in one room. This month, add the window management habit, night ventilation, morning close-up, and see how much less heat you are fighting by afternoon. By the end of summer, you will have a routine that costs almost nothing and works reliably every year. Stay cool out there. The simple way usually wins. If you have your own trick for beating the heat without touching the thermostat, I would genuinely love to hear it in the comments. Maybe something a parent or grandparent showed you, maybe something you figured out yourself. Share it below. This community has some of the most practical knowledge I have come across, and others will thank you for it. And if videos like this one are useful to you, subscribing keeps them coming your way. Next time, we are looking at another old house trick for keeping a whole home cooler without spending $1, one that most folks walk past every single day without noticing. You will not want to miss it.